Debate, the Honourable Member for Edmonton Manning.
Mr. Speaker, it might be safe to say this is the most important issue that will be debate in this 42nd Parliament. We are proposing a change in how we provide end-of-life care for Canadians, but it goes beyond that. If this bill passes, we will give new authority to agents of state to take someone's life away. That is sobering responsibility, one that I hope none of us is taking lightly. What is proposed is a fundamental shift in Canadian society and how we see ourselves as humans. After only a few hours of debate, we will be asked to change the viewpoint of centuries. We will be asking doctors who have sworn an oath to not play God, to instead do just that, and to be the agents of death for some patients. And we are doing this without consultation, without even asking doctors, nurses, and pharmacists if they want that responsibility. This is not what they were trained to do. This may not be what they want to do, but Parliament is planning on telling them to go do it. The haste with which we are being asked to overturn centuries of thought and practice is unseemly. I understand the Supreme Court, in setting this deadline, is only doing what it perceives as being proper. I'm sure the justices of the court are well-meaning men and women, genuinely concerned with the plight of those who are terminally ill, in pain, who wish to end their lives, but are physically unable to do so. Mr. Speaker, I'm sure that I'm not alone in receiving calls, letters, emails, and submissions from people opposed to this particular legislation. Many have come from those who take a religious approach to this issue. From what I can see, people of faith, Christian, Muslim, or Jewish, are united in their belief in the sacredness of life and feel that in enduring so-called assisted dying, the state is intruding into areas that should be beyond its jurisdiction. It seems to me that we are a nation should be having a full and lengthy debate on how we approach life and quality of life. A debate perhaps done under more objective circumstances than when a loved one is suffering from incurable illness. We are being asked to make profoundly disturbing choices in order to do it now. It doesn't take much talent to predict that the aftermath of this legislation will be confusion. However, if killing patients become an option, for whatever supposedly good reason, how long will it be before the reason become more flexible than rigid? What about those with no family who are a drain on hospital resources? Would it not be in the financial best interests of society to end their lives? How are we going to prevent families from pressuring their aged ones, urging them to request death so the next generation of the family will be financially better off? There are so many issues still unresolved. We are acting in haste, and it seems to be almost guaranteed that we will get it wrong. This brings me, Mr. Speaker, to this hastily drafted piece of legislation we are considering tonight. Apparently, the government has decided that the idea of assisted suicide is not itself worthy of debate. It seems to be a foregone conclusion that despite the objections of people of faith and many other Canadians, medically assisted dying is a done deal. Laying aside any debate on the merits or lack thereof on the concept of assisted dying, we need to examine this bill and deal with its flaws. I am extremely concerned about the safeguards, or perhaps I should say the lack of safeguards, that this legislation provides for those who in good conscience do not wish to take part in aiding someone's death. Simply put, this bill does not go far enough in protecting those people. To leave such regulations to the provinces is an abrogation of parliamentary responsibility. What happens, Mr. Speaker, when a physician, in good conscience, declines to end someone's life? We don't know. We are told that there will be protection of conscience rights, but that is not spelled out in this legislation. Apparently, that will be left for the provinces to figure out, or for someone else to make the rules who we are not told. If I was a physician, I would be feeling very uneasy right now. The legislation spells out how doctors will not be subject to prosecution for ending someone's life if they requested aid in dying. But what will happen to the healthcare professional who declines to end a life? What penalties will be the state impose on them if they wish to abide by their conscience? Or will the state not allow them to follow the dictates of conscience and insist they become killers? Supporters of this legislation, I'm sure, will tell you that, of course, no one will be forced to perform actions they consider to be unethical. But if so, where is that in the legislation? Healthcare professionals cannot be faulted for being uneasy when they are told, "Trust us." We might not be discussing this issue if we're doing a better job as a nation in assisting those approaching the end of their neutral life, to where is commitment of the government to increase funding for palliative care, an election promise unfulfilled in Budget 2016. $3 billion was promised for long-term and palliative care, but nothing was delivered. Should not we, as a nation, be considering how to improve the quality of life for those facing serious illness? Or it is just cheaper to encourage them to end their own lives to save money for the healthcare system? Access to proper palliative care would be an essential part of end-of-life decision-making, and in many cases encourage people not to take their own lives. When we are talking about conscience in these matters, the concept goes beyond the rights of individuals. It also strikes deep at the nature of our healthcare system. Has the government given any consideration to the fact that many of the hospitals in our country were founded by and are still run by religious organizations, groups whose members will not look favorably on the idea of being ordered by government to assist in providing services to which they are philosophically opposed? Or is that something again being left for the provinces to work out? Is this the government's intention to require Roman Catholic or Salvation Army-run hospitals to administer procedures that run counter to the deeply held beliefs? What right is more important, and how does the government choose? What sort of coercion will be applied to force individuals and organizations to abandon deeply held belief? Mr. Speaker, this legislation is deeply flawed. It should not be supported unless it's greatly improved, especially in providing protection for freedom of conscience for both individuals and institutions in the healthcare system. Thank you.
Questions and comments? L'honorable député de